Hello everyone, in this video we will be seeing part 6 of What If Deku was in the DC universe. So be sure to stick around until the end. Let's get started. OA, home planet of the Green Lantern Corps. This planet housed, trained, and deployed countless Green Lanterns across the universe. Today, it was under attack. From the depths of space, a purple humanoid with 3 eyes and a horizontal fin across its head appeared before the entire Corps. He wore a long black cape that was held together by 3 golden circles on his chest. He had black pants and golden bracelets that gave him a menacing overlord look. "So this is the legendary Green Lantern Corps," he said before unleashing a powerful wave of psionic energy from his third eye. The Corps created shield constructs to defend themselves, but were quickly overpowered by his power. "How unbearably pathetic," he finished. "What's pathetic? Despero is thinking a poozer like you can turn the Corps into your own personal army," Kilowog said before creating a rocket launcher and firing it at the alien, who merely dodged it and released another wave of energy. "Fool, don't you know? I have the power to bend their pathetic wills to mine," Despero said, using his third eye's power to take over the minds of the Corps members. Their eyes turning red and their faces blank and emotionless. "See how easily they fall to me. And your masters, the Guardians of the Universe, are next. The Guardians got moved to a safe place, which is more than I can say for you," Kilowog yelled, throwing a missile barrage at Despero, who simply used his new slaves to create a massive barrier to protect him. "Submit to me willingly, Kilowog, and together we can bring about a golden age unlike any ever seen before," Despero offered. "You mean an age of servitude, where everybody's just a puppet for you to pull their strings? No thanks. And I won't let you use the Corps against the rest of the universe," Kilowog said firmly. Angered by the Lantern's refusal, Despero sent his mind-controlled puppets to charge at the massive alien. Kilowog, however, had one more trick up his sleeve. One that he always considered a last resort. "In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might beware my power. Green Lantern's light," Kilowog recited, unleashing a massive beam from his ring, enveloping every member of the Corps in its light. As it faded away, Despero looked at his surroundings, seeing that he was now alone. "So Kilowog decided to destroy himself and the Corps rather than leave it in my care. A minor annoyance that will require a slight change in plans," he said before flying off back into the void. Not noticing the small lantern ring floating in space before flying off into the void itself, the opposite way of Despero. Back on Earth, Deku and the rest of the Teen Titans were facing off against a giant robot that looked like a giant toy soldier. Inside the head of the toy soldier was a large man that wore a long green trench coat, a red t-shirt and blue navy pants. Time for the toy maker to get some pretty pennies for his new toys. "They don't come cheap, you know?" Toy maker asked as he controlled the toy soldier to reach in for the bank's vault. However, it never reached it as Green Lantern Jessica Cruz created a large octopus that began attacking the giant robot. "Sorry, toy maker, but you best keep your hands off of the cookie jar," said Green Lantern as her construct held back the robot. Deku used this chance to run up the side of the building at top speeds. He leaped from the building top straight at the toy soldier's head. With his fist reeled back, he called out his attack as it connected with the large black hat. "Detroit, smash!" Deku yelled as the top of the robot's head was sent back with great force. The toy maker screamed at the sight of his position being compromised. "No fair, no fair, no fair. This is Metropolis. Where the heck is Superman?" toy maker asked before he tried a desperate escape. From the heels of the robot's feet large flames appeared, allowing the robot to break free of the Green Lantern's construct. The toy soldier flew high into the sky only to be caught mid-flight by Wonder Woman's lasso of truth and Supergirl's strength. The 2 superhero girls pulled at the robot's legs, and with a strong pull, they were ripped off. The toy soldier fell from the sky with its creator screaming for his life. Just then, Deku jumped into the cockpit, lifted the criminal out of his chair, and pulled him out into the street with a powerful jump. Before the remains of the robot could hit the street, Zatanna and Green Lantern combined their powers to create a large pillow to catch it, but it never got the chance. The torso of the robot was quickly bashed into tiny pieces by a large green baseball bat construct, causing small debris to fall down on the streets. "Oh no, not him," Jessica said under her breath, knowing fully who had done that. "Don't worry, Metropolis, Green Lantern is here," Green Lantern Hal Jordan said as he floated down with a green cape construct. People around the streets gathered around Hal Jordan, and he was loving the attention. This left the Teen Titans on the sidelines as if they were no big deal, even though they still had Toymaker in custody. "Oh come on, we did all the work," Supergirl said angrily. "Yeah, a thank you wouldn't kill them," Batgirl added just as annoyed. "Don't let it get to you guys." "At least we caught Toymaker," said Deku, lifting up the builder with one hand. Toymaker, for his part, only pouted and continued to mumble "not fair" until the police arrived to take him away. "Another villain brought to justice. Let us go now, team," Wonder Woman said as the team began to leave the area. "As long as I'm away from Hal, I'm good," Jess replied before someone cut them off. "Titans, Lois Lane from the Daily Planetoid, care to answer a few questions?" asked the teen reporter. The team members looked at each other before mutually agreeing that a small interview wouldn't hurt. Sure," Deku replied. "Awesome. Now, you are the current superhero team that has been keeping the city safe aside from Superman. What would you say is the source of your success?" asked Lois with a recorder in hand. "Well, I believe that," began Wonder Woman when she was cut off by another green-wearing hero. "I'll take it from here, Wowo," Hal said, getting ahead of Wonder Woman. "Wowo?" wondered Diana, slightly annoyed. "Green Lantern here, and I'll answer all your questions, miss. The key to our team's great butt-kicking record stems from my awesome tutoring skills," Hal said, earning a collective "what" from the Titans. To say the Titans were taken aback by Hal's bold claim would be an understatement. "Yep, I can tell you for certain that these guys have come a long way from the small fries that they once were. A few weeks of my lessons and they are now able to take on almost anything, even though they call upon my help from time to time." Greenie back there was so amazed by my leadership skills that he modeled his suit after me, he said, boasting and getting on the Titans' nerves. Having had enough of Hal's boasting, Jessica created a large green hand construct and began jerking at Hal's ear, effectively shutting him up. "Sorry, but no more questions," Jessica said before the team and Hal left the scene. A short flight later, the Teen Titans landed on a rooftop, with Jess holding the still moaning and complaining Hal. She dropped him on the rooftop and the team then glared at him. "What?" Hal asked. "What? What were you thinking, Hal?" Jessica demanded from her fellow Green Lantern. "What? I gave you guys a hand. Last time I checked, that was a good thing," Hal replied, dusting himself off. "How exactly did you help us?" Zatanna asked. "We had already beaten that robot and were about to stop it from crushing the street." "Yeah, you only smashed it into smaller pieces." "That's my thing," Supergirl added. "Don't see what the problem is. Besides, I gave you guys the spotlight on that interview," Hal said, trying to defend himself. "First of all, you are not part of this team, therefore, you do not speak for this team. And you do not take credit for this team," Jess listed off while glaring at the male Green Lantern. "As much as we appreciate your help, Hal, you can't just use that as an excuse to get publicity," Deku said, putting in his 2 cents. "You've got to do this because it's the right thing to do, and that's all the reason you should do it. Have you been living under a rock? Many heroes make their income with publicity and merchandise. Just look at this Endeavor guy from Japan," Hal said, pulling out his phone and showing the face of a man with a mustache and goatee made of fire. Izuku hated to admit it, but Hal sorta had a point. Many heroes in Japan were more celebrities than actual heroes. But he was going to be different. He was going to be like All Might, a symbol of justice and peace. Before their conversation could get any further, a green ring appeared before the superheroes, more specifically Jess, Hal, and Izuku. Before any of them could properly question what was happening, a bubble formed around the trio and rocketed them out into space. The rest of the Teen Titans could only look up in uncertainty as 2 of their friends left orbit. "What the heck just happened?" asked Kara, afraid that Izuku had just been abducted by aliens. "We must follow them immediately," Wonder Woman said. "That was a Green Lantern ring. From what Jessica told me, we won't be able to reach it in time," said Karen. "What else do you know about these rings?" asked Diana to her teammate. "Aside from creating anything the user imagines out of their willpower, it can translate any alien language, protect its user from any environment, even space," recalled Karen. "What about just up and taking other Green Lanterns and heroes?" asked Zatanna. "It must be following the instructions of its wielder somehow. To find and take anyone with a Green Lantern ring," Karen surmised. "Then something really big must be happening up there," Barbara said as they all looked up at the stars in fear of their friends. In the void of space, the green bubble made by the Green Lantern ring traveled through the cosmos until it reached its destination. It quickly landed on the planet Oa's surface before falling into Izuku's hands as it dropped the 3 passengers on the ground. What just happened? Asked Deku, looking around as he and the Green Lanterns got back on their feet. It looks like we're on OA, the headquarters of the Green Lantern Corps, said Jessica, looking at the tall green and white buildings. I really hate when they do that. Can't the Guardians just send us a call or something? Asked Hal to seemingly no one. The planet appeared deserted. It felt like a large ghost town. Izuku looked down to the ring that brought them here and began examining it. Do you guys know who this belongs to? Izuku asked the Green Lanterns. Both lanterns looked at the ring and gasped in horror. Is that? Asked Hal. It can't be, Jess answered in fear. What is it? Izuku asked, afraid of what they might tell him. That's Kilowog's ring, but he can't be dead or the ring would have just gone and found another wielder. Jessica explained before putting her ring to look into the other ring's functions. As Jessica was inspecting the ring, she found a recorded video of what had happened. The video showed Kilowog fighting against Despero, and how he used his psychic powers to control the entire Green Lantern Corps. This is bad. If Despero is still out there we have to stop him, said Jessica. Any ideas as to where he'd go? Asked Deku. He'll most likely be after an army, but we've got to see if there's anyone else from the Corps around here. We couldn't be the only ones left, said Hal. Jessica pulled out a radar and it showed a signal on OA. There is good news and bad news, Jessica said. What's the good news? Asked Deku, feeling a little overwhelmed by being in space. There is a Green Lantern still on OA, Jess answered cheerfully. Wait, what's the bad news? Asked Hal, sensing a butt coming. Follow me, Jess said as the trio followed her through the city, and leading them, to their surprise, to the brig. Why would a lantern be down here? Izuku asked. They soon came to the source of the signal and turned into the cell that held a single reddish-skinned alien with pointy, elf-like ears and a pencil-thin mustache on its face. He wore a Green Lantern uniform, but didn't look very heroic to Izuku. Sinestro? Hal asked in slight surprise at finding the lantern locked up. Jordan? Cruz? What are you doing here? He asked in a serious tone, somewhat glaring at the fellow lanterns. Here to save you, I guess, Hal said as he input the code to unlock the cell. Sinestro got up from his seat and exited the cell and greeted the lanterns with a handshake. It's good to see some friendly faces, he said before turning to Izuku. And some unfamiliar ones. Are you a new recruit? I'm not a lantern, sir. My name is Deku and I was brought here along with Jess and Hal. But I'm here to help, responded Deku, firmly looking at the senior Green Lantern. Sinestro, why were you locked up? Jess asked. Sinestro was silent a moment before sighing. I was running a convoy mission, protecting a group of diplomats when they were attacked by a group of Okuran warlords. I fought them off, but the Guardians accused me of using excessive force even after the warlords had surrendered, he explained. Did you? Asked Deku cautiously. I did, but you all would understand that we have to take drastic measures to ensure others' safety. Besides, it would seem that you require my help, Sinestro answered. Deku pulled both Jessica and Hal to the side in order to talk. Guys, I don't trust this guy. He doesn't seem to bat an eye at the issue of excessive force, Deku said. Deku, Sinestro is one of the greatest lanterns in the entire Corps. He's better than even Kilowog and me, and that's me saying that, Hal said. As much as I hate to admit it, Deku, Hal's right. While I do not condone his use of violence, it is a common fact among us that the Okurans are known to attack after falsely surrendering, and while their opponent's guard is down. Sinestro may have made a rash decision, but he's still the best of the best, Jess said somewhat reluctantly. If you are quite done with your discussion, I'd like to know what's happened in my absence, said Sinestro impatiently. We should still keep an eye on him, Deku said under his breath. Deku and the Green Lanterns explained the situation to Sinestro and mentioned that Despero was heading to another sector. Then we must make haste if we're to stop him, said Sinestro before looking at Deku. You say you don't have a ring, that'll slow us down. Jordan, Cruz, help me with this. What's the P-plan? Hal asked. Simple. If he cannot wield a power ring, then we simply use our rings to augment him, Sinestro said, as he leveled his ring at Deku and began to create constructs around him. Followed by Jess and Hal doing the same, getting the idea. Within a few seconds, Deku now stood decked in a set of armor with similar designs to that of Jess and Hal's uniforms, with slight alterations, such as the astronaut-like helmet over his head and the will-powered jetpack on his back. Deku looked himself over before looking back at the Green Lanterns. "Wow, how does this work?" asked Deku. "The suit works based on thought, and it'll help with whatever powers and abilities you may possess," Sinestro explained. Izuku thought about flying and the jetpack lit up, pulling him into the air. "It might get some time getting used to this," Deku said. "You'll have to learn on the fly. We've got a bad guy to catch," Hal said, as he and the other lanterns flew off with him. Izuku followed shortly afterwards with the aid of One for All, catching up with the lanterns with ease. The four will-powered heroes traversed the stars in search of Despero. They were following the trail that their rings caught onto. His psychic wavelength was easy to follow in the emptiness of space. As the group flew through the void, Deku slowly got the hang of how to move in space, with Jess looking out for him, of course. "Alright, now just keep your arms straight and that should help keep you balanced," explained Jessica. Deku did as she instructed him and easily got the hang of the nothingness of space. "Be sharp everyone, the enemy should be ahead of us," Sinestro said. "PF, don't worry, I've got ears and eyes like a fox." "No one is going to get past good old Hal," said Hal before being blasted away by a laser beam. The rest of the heroes turned to see a large Despero with lightning coming out of his hands. "Prepare to meet your end, heroes," said Giant Despero maliciously. The large evildoer attacked the heroes, swatting them away as if they were flies. The heroes dodged at best as they could, trying to get an opening for their own attack. The giant Despero fired another blast of energy at the Green Lanterns, forcing them to split up. He then caught hold of both Deku and Sinestro with his hands in a crushing grip. "Deku, hang on!" Jessica called out as she charged to help her friend. Jessica created a large pair of pincers and tried to force Despero's hand open. But the villain backhanded her away, shattering her construct. Jess quickly halted herself and flew back into the fight with a large shield construct. At that moment, Hal finally got off his ass and started helping in the battle. Both young lanterns charged at the large enemy, but were met by another blast from Despero's third eye. Jess and Hal combined their constructs to create a larger and stronger shield to hold back the blast. Meanwhile, both Deku and Sinestro were struggling to break free from the iron grip of the villain. "We've got to help them," said Deku as he called upon One for All. "But I don't think my suit will handle the strain of my power. The suit is made of pure will power, as long as your will is strong enough. There is nothing that two Imian we can't do," explained Sinestro as he showed Deku how to really use the power of his new suit. Deku did as Sinestro instructed, even though he didn't trust him. He began to summon the power of One for All, first at 10% and then at 15%, willing his suit to work alongside it. With the combined power of the construct and the quirk, Deku broke free of Despero's grasp as green lightning crackled around his body. The sudden release of power knocked Despero back a little, making him stop his attack on the other lanterns. Wasting no time, both Deku and Sinestro charged at Despero's face at great speeds. They reeled back their fists and uppercutted Despero in the jaw, sending him back. Deku then charged at the alien overlord before spinning mid-flight and slamming down his right leg on its third eye. "Manchester, SS smash!" Deku yelled, sending a powerful shockwave of willpower at Despero's face. The giant Despero shattered into tiny pieces, showing that it was not the original. "What just happened? I didn't think that it would do something like that," Deku said, freaking out. "Don't worry, that was merely a projection of Despero's mind. A clever trick meant to distract us," Sinestro said, causing Deku to let out a sigh of relief. "Deku," called out Jessica as she quickly went to hug her friend. "You did it!" Before kissing him, Jess continued to hug her friend, not realizing that she was basically rubbing herself on him. She could feel all of his muscles, but as soon as she realized what she was doing, she took a step back. "So, yeah, well done," Jessica said. "We have bigger problems, you guys. Despero is still out there," said Hal. "But where could he be? If he's planning to get an army, then he could go anywhere," Deku said after getting out of his stupor. "No army can compare to the Green Lantern Corps. All of its members wield the most powerful weapon in the universe," said Sinestro. "Wait, Jessica, didn't you say something about a guy named Mogo, a living planet?" Deku asked Jessica, whose eyes went wide. "Why have an army when you can have an entire planet to do your bidding?" said Jess in realization. "Then we must hurry. Tracking Mogo will be easier than tracking Despero," said Hal as he found Mogo's ring signal with his ring. The three Green Lanterns and Deku made their way through several sectors until they came across a sight unlike any they'd ever seen. or at least one that Deku never thought he'd ever come across. A large blue planet made its way through the stars as a great part of its landmass formed Despero's face. At the front of the planet was none other than Despero, and was ready to attack another planet. That planet being Earth. The Green Lanterns landed on a nearby asteroid field to plan their next move. Okay, so I say we hit him hard and fast while he's distracted. I'll go in from the front and hit him, Hal began but was cut off. This guy has psychic powers, and as long as he has control over Mogo, he's too powerful. We need an actual plan, said Deku, cutting off Hal. Dude, chill out. I know what I'm doing, besides I've been in space more times than you, replied Hal. This isn't some get in and get out brawl, Hal. If Despero can control most of the core, what makes you think that you alone can take him? Asked Deku. Deku is right, Hal. We need to free Mogo, Jess added. You're both wasting your breath, Sinestro said. Jordan only understands one thing at times like this. You know what? I'm done with this whole team-up snorefest. I'm taking down Despero myself. You and Jess can pick up flowers and say non-violent things to each other, Hal boldly claimed. It was no secret that Hal could get on Izuku's nerves, just like another loudmouth showboat he knew. So a certain action started to feel more and more tempting in his mind. Hal, if you even so much as sneeze, you'll regret it, Deku said, completely against the idea forming in his head. Ha! I'd like to see you try, you nerd, Hal began. Before Hal could finish that sentence, he was struck square in the face by none other than Deku. It only took one punch and Hal was down on the ground. Everyone remained quiet, until Deku broke the silence. Ah! I'm sorry, Hal, I didn't mean to hit you that hard, said Deku, afraid of what made him do that. Un golpe y eso fue todo. One punch, Jessica said as she had to admit it was kind of amazing what Izuku had just done. I didn't mean to, Jessica, I swear, Deku said repeatedly. Calm yourselves, we have work to do, Sinestro said before creating a hand construct that slapped Jordan awake. Wah? Ow. Just so you know, I let you have that one, Hal said, although his face stung almost as if Kilowog had punched him. Wish we had the rest of the core with us, that way we'd win no problem, said Jessica before realizing something. That's it, Mogo has an incredibly strong will, all we need to do it reactivate it with his lantern. What about Despero and a brainwashed Mogo? They won't just stay put, said Hal, we'll keep them occupied. Sinestro and I will fight off Despero while Jess looks for Mogo's battery and reignites it, Deku said, getting a nod from the group. Where am I on that plan? Asked Hal. You'll have to keep Mogo occupied until Jess can snap him back to his senses. Are up for it, Hal? Asked Deku. A smile slowly formed on Jordan's face until it was a massive grin. Heck yeah, Hal replied. The makeshift team of superheroes flew towards their respective tasks. Jessica used her ring to track Mogo's power battery, entering into the depths of the living planet. Hal flew to the surface of the planet ready to get his attention, while Deku and Sinestro charged against Despero himself. Soon this world full of superpowered individuals shall obey my every command, Despero said, his eyes narrowing into a sinister glare. Not while we're around, Deku called out before firing a will-powered flick. Delaware, smash! Despero turned around just in time to receive Dekus and Sinestro's attacks directly on his face. The space tyrant recovered his senses before seeing the two heroes coming after him with their fists reeled back. He fired a blast from his third eye, breaking off the combination, before focusing more on Sinestro. I do not care if there are still some lanterns, you shall not stop me, Despero boldly claimed. That's too bad because I am here, Deku yelled before giving the three-eyed tyrant a powerful kick in the face. Feeling a bit proud at how they were faring at the moment, Deku turned head after the kick to relay an order to Sinestro, only to find his teammate was nowhere to be found. Sinestro? He asked, only to get shot by a blast from Despero. On the surface of Mogo, Hal landed with a powerful crash as he used his ring to create a giant construct of a humanoid avatar. Hey Mogo! Despero's making a chump out of you, you gotta snap out of it, he yelled, using the construct's massive mouth to shout out to the planet. However, the enthralled planet was not listening, and created a large protrusion of rock that slammed into his fellow lantern, destroying the construct easily. Falling to the ground in a haze, Hal soon got up, only to be surprised to see some manner of giant green explosive device in front of him. Flying up a bit, he was further surprised to see more leading forward. Following the trail of mines, Hal was surprised to find none other than Sinestro setting the mines in the first place. What are you doing here? You're supposed to be up there with Deku and protecting the Earth, Hal said, landing before his comrade in arms. That's exactly what I'm doing. I have no intention of allowing Despero to take control of the universe, and I refuse to leave the task in the hands of incompetent fools like you and Jessica. That's why I'm gonna blow Mogo to bits, Sinestro said stoically and without compromise. Mogo? But he's a living being. A Green Lantern. And what about Jess? If Mogo blows, then she's done for too. Hal said in disbelief at what his teammate was saying. Extraordinary. The egotist actually has feelings, Sinestro said with a small smirk. Look, okay, I get it. Alright, desperate times, desperate measures. But all we gotta do to take down Despero is to hang back and let Jess do her job. Hal said before Sinestro created a hand construct that backhanded the lantern in the face, sending him stumbling backwards. Why does that not fill me with confidence? Sinestro asked rhetorically. Hal got back to his feet and jumped at Sinestro, tackling away from the mines he'd created. He then created a large fist construct and punched Sinestro with it, only for Sinestro to get back up and hit him with a spiked mace. Deep inside Mogo's body, Jessica flew at high speeds in search of Mogo's battery. Jessica knew that she had to find it. Every second that she was down there was a second that Deku would have to face off against Despero. Come on, Mogo. Just how deep did you put your battery? Donde está? Jessica asked as her ring led her down deeper into the living planet's core. Speaking of Deku, he was being thrown by Despero into one of the nearby asteroids. With a loud crash, Deku slowly lifted himself from the asteroid and looked directly at the space tyrant. I expected one of Earth's heroes to come and try to stop me, but I assumed it wouldn't be a child, Despero said. I'm man enough to stop you, Deku replied as 20% of One for All flowed through him. Using the will-powered suit, Deku held back the pain he felt and then jumped at Despero one more time. Deku punched Despero in the stomach, sending him back before using his new increased speed to pull off a makeshift Gran Torino. Using a combination of short jetpack bursts and the asteroid debris around him, Deku jumped and bounced around Despero trying to get a good opening. You think this silly little trick will be enough to stop me? Despero asked as he attempted to hit Deku with his psychic blasts. I am Des, he began, but was cut off by a punch to the face. I am... Kick to the left side. I am D... Elbow to the back. In a fit of rage, Despero fired a powerful blast at the asteroids, knocking Deku off his rhythm. Before he could recover, Despero caught him and began using his third eye to enslave the mind of Deku. This armor may protect you for now, but not for long, Despero said, with rage in his voice. Back on Mogo's surface, Hal and Sinestro were clashing over a test of wills. Hal tried throwing a punch construct at Sinestro, only to be blasted in the chest. Why are you doing this, Sinestro? You're supposed to be the best of the best. You're one of us, Hal asked, holding his chest in pain. I was never one of you. The justice that the Guardians wish for is a farce. I have always stood alone. Above the rabble. Sinestro replied before attacking Hal once again. Are you really that desperate to prove what a hero you are? Sinestro asked. Hal was panting for a second, trying to keep it together. It's not about me, it's about Mogo and Jess, he said as Sinestro swung a flail construct at Hal, only for his to send it back with a baseball bat construct. And Earth, he yelled. Back with Deku and Despero, Deku kept struggling against Despero's onslaught against his mind, as Despero smiled. You are a most impressive human, but don't you realize there's no way you and your motley crew can win this? Hal is a loose cannon ruled by his ego, the girl is a pathetic pacifist, and Sinestro. Well, allow me to elucidate on your comrade's imprisonment. I learned that he not only attacked the Okuran warlords after they had surrendered, but he also callously murdered every single being on those ships. After which he created a puppet government loyal only to him on the very planet he was sworn to protect. You see, young man, he and I both seek to impose order on this chaotic, meaningless universe. He will make a worthy soldier in my cause. As will you, Despero said as he upped the power of his psionic abilities to break Izuku. Deep near Mogo's core, Jessica had managed to locate the power battery. Yes, finally. Now all I need is the oath, Jessica said, preparing herself to recite it. In brightest day, in blackest night, no evil shall escape my sight. Let those who worship evil's might. Beware my power, Green Lantern's light. After reciting the oath of the Green Lanterns, the battery before Jess began to glow, and soon enough Mogo responded to it. The living planet was regaining its freedom. Back on the surface of the planet, Sinestro had just pinned Hal, holding out his right arm as a buzzsaw came towards it. Hal tightened his fists, and began to focus all the willpower he still had left, making him shine brighter than before. In a burst of green light, Hal broke free from Sinestro's hold. Hal used this chance to finish the fight. He created a large bullet train construct and slammed it into Sinestro. The train sent him flying far out of the atmosphere before Sinestro finally stopped. "Guess there's a new best of the best," said Hal to Sinestro. Just as Sinestro was about to attack, a large couple of mountains were shot from Mogo into Sinestro, knocking him out. Back with Deku, he was struggling to keep the tyrant out of his head, but he could slowly feel his consciousness slipping past his fingers. Until, "Get up." Several voices called from deep within Deku's mind. He began seeing different colors and lights flashing past him. "Get up." Izuku found himself before a great flame, and inside that flame were 8 different silhouettes. They slowly walked towards him. He could tell some of them were people, but others were hard to identify. "Don't just stand there, you have to fight." Deku regained his senses, staring Despero dead in the eyes. An idea formed in his mind. A gamble, but the only one he had. He began focusing 100% of one for all in his middle finger, and slowly rose it up to Despero's face. The space tyrant looked confused at the finger getting closer to him. "Get, my head!" He yelled before flicking his finger right into Despero's face full force, sending him flying back as well as knocking him out and damaging his third eye. Deku, while he wanted to sigh in relief at no longer having his mind flayed to pieces, instead let out a scream of different pain at having his finger completely shattered. "Deku!" Jessica called out as she saw her friend in pain. As soon as she saw his finger, she created a green construct to hold it in one piece. "What happened to you?" she asked as Deku tried to pull off a smile. "Dude, your finger looks like it was stuck in a trash compactor," Hal said as he held both Sinestro and Despero in a bind. "I kinda went past my limit, but Despero is down for the count," Deku said with a smile. Jessica gave him a worried look before Kilowog's ring floated out of her pocket. The ring flew until a bright flash of green light illuminated the 3 heroes. When the light subsided, the rest of the Green Lantern Corps stood before them, with Kilowog at the front. "Kilowog, you're alive," Jess said. "Of course I am, it'll take more than a power-hungry poozer to take me out. I just pulled the other lanterns into my ring to keep them from being puppets," said Kilowog before he noticed Deku. "Who are you?" "My name is Deku, sir," Deku replied, not flinching at the sight of the large alien. "Thanks for the assist, poozer. I'm guessing you knocked Despero off of his high horse," Kilowog said, looking at Despero. "Yeah, he did. Now if you don't mind, we need to get back to Earth before our teammates start fearing the worst," said Jess before Kilowog nodded. Jessica took Izuku back down to Earth, and met with the rest of their team, who hugged the life out of them. "We were so worried," said Diana. "Don't pull that on us again," Kara added, looking at Izuku in particular. "Or at least give us a heads up," Zatanna said before putting a spell to heal his finger. "No promises, but I'll be sure to bring the Emerald Knight along just in case, and to watch his back of course," Jessica said blushing, and hugging Izuku's arm, unintentionally rubbing her breasts against it, which caused Izuku to blush. The loud sound of clapping extended far and wide within the small amphitheater. Zatanna had been hired to make a small opening act for the daring escape of Mr. Miracle, but it was safe to say that the audience was enjoying Zatanna's act more. Possibly due to the help of her lovely assistant Izuku, who was wearing a 2-piece black suit, white shirt and green bow tie. Zatanna had just made a giant card replica of the Daily Planet fold back into a single deck of cards, all before guessing the card that a member of the public had picked. "And now for my next trick, I shall pull a rabbit out of my hat," Zatanna said, causing the audience to look confused and for Izuku to jump back in slight fear, much to the greater confusion of the audience. Zatanna took off her top hat, pulled back her sleeve before slowly inserting her hand into the hat. Just as she was doing this, a large hand appeared over Izuku, which freaked him out. The large gloved hand picked him up from the back of his suit and slowly began lifting him out of everyone's sight. After disappearing from sight, Izuku was pulled out of Zatanna's hat, now wearing a couple of green bunny ears on his head. A little startled, "But what an adorable little bunny," Zatanna said, nuzzling Izuku before placing him right next to her. The audience loved it, and gave the 2 young adults plenty of applause and whistles, a few even giving them standing ovations. The two teens left the stage with Zatanna being so full of energy that she hugged and twirled on Izuku before giving him a kiss on the cheek. "That was so amazing and you were fabulous, darling," said Zatanna before letting go of Izuku. "Well, you did all the work. I just stood there," replied Izuku with a little blush on his face. "Nonsense, Izuku, you were as much a part of the show as I was. And you deserve a reward for being such a good bunny at the end," Zatanna said before giving a seductive smile to Izuku. Izuku blushed as he had a faint idea of what Zatanna was referring to. He had been seeing for some time now that the young magician had been giving him bedroom eyes and teasing him with a sway of the hips here. A blown kiss there, and the invasion of his personal space during training was never too far behind. Izuku admitted that Zatanna carried herself with great elegance and showmanship, so to see her do those things made him blush as much as he usually did with Diana or Kara. "Really, Z, you don't have to do anything. I'm perfectly fine, I swear," Izuku replied before Zatanna pulled on his bow tie, getting him less than an inch to her face. "So you're saying that Diana and Kara are enough for you?" Zatanna asked seductively in Izuku's ear, causing him to stiffen. "But from what I gather, it must be pretty open to keep it so down low." "Well, never mind about that, check your coat pocket and follow me," she said before blowing into Izuku's ear and letting go of his tie. Izuku took a minute to recollect his thoughts before reaching into his coat pocket and found two cards. One showed a picture of him feeding Diana and Kara some dessert in sweet justice and had, "Gotcha, darling," written on it. And the second card said, "Changing room. 5 minutes, lover," and was signed with a lipstick kiss. His eyes widened in shock at the bold request, but he assumed that he didn't have much of a choice. Izuku slowly walked to the changing room that had been assigned to Zatanna and knocked on the door. After a few seconds he got a response. "Come in," Zatanna's voice sang from the other side of the door. Izuku slowly opened the door, cautious as to what might be on the other side. The room was dimly lit by an assortment of scented candles. He went inside, not knowing what Zatanna could have put together in such a short time. "Zatanna?" Izuku called out. "In here, Izuku, come in," Zatanna replied in an alluring voice that warmed up Izuku's body. The young man walked into the room as the door shut and locked behind him with several locks. He slowly turned around as the light of the candles illuminated the room a little more. Izuku couldn't find Zatanna within the room, but he suddenly found himself tied to a chair on the other side of the room. "Sorry for the sudden game of musical chairs, darling, but a magician's greatest weapons are misdirection," Zatanna said, stepping before Izuku. Dressed in only a purple laced lingerie bra and matching panties complete with a garter belt and stockings, surrounded by a pink aura that made her hair shine brightly. And her body. "Now get ready for tonight's main magical event." Zatanna clearly had the developed body of a woman, and she wasn't afraid of using it. She swayed her hips side to side, putting an emphasis on her great curves, as she walked up to Izuku before leaning her breasts into his face. A nice pair of D-cup breasts were only a few inches away from him and he could feel the heat of her body. She placed both of her hands on his legs and began to caress them, feeling every bit of muscle they had on them, and getting ever so closer to the target of her desire. "Zatanna, you don't have to, but I want to do you, darling. Seeing you like that with Diana and Kara has gotten me so jealous and I know it's my turn," Zatanna said, cutting Izuku off, before giving him a steamy, mouth-watering kiss on the lips while pressing herself on his body. "I can only trust my lovely assistant to help me with this, after all," she said as a trail of saliva from her plump red lips connected the two. Zatanna straddled Izuku's hips before she reignited their makeout session. Her tongue darted out of her mouth and into his own and began wrestling for control. She pressed herself on his muscular body despite being separated by the magical ropes and their respective clothes. She could still feel the strength of his firm muscles right underneath them. She even felt a certain part becoming much harder and threatening to break the zipper. Zatanna broke off the kiss so they could breathe once again. Time skip. Zuko was all done as Zatanna laid down with a very satisfied face. "Did you like it, Z?" asked Izuku, whispering into her ear. "Oh, believe me, darling, I loved every minute of it," said Zatanna between pants. "Now you just have to apply these new skills of yours with Diana and Kara," she said, causing Izuku to stiffen up. Zatanna chuckled to herself as she could already picture her friends' faces. The next day, Zatanna leaned on the door to Kara's room as she heard the grunts and moans of pleasure coming from within the room. The smile on her face grew ever so slyly as she had been the one to enjoy Izuku's first oral performance. And a performance it was. After a full minute of pleasurable screams, it all ceased. The door was opened and two very satisfied beauties came out panting in pleasure. Diana and Kara were about to fall down with weak knees given their new experience. "So, I take it, I taught him well," Zatanna said with a seductive smile. "Oh yeah, you really did," Kara replied, trying to catch her breath. "Welcome to our sisterhood of love, Zatanna," Diana said before she fell down with a goofy grin. "Happy to join you girls. Now, if you'll excuse me, it's my turn," said Zatanna before entering the room, hips swaying. Izuku slowly woke up from his good night's rest when he noticed a strange warm breath coming down on him. He slowly opened his eyes and found himself face to face with a large white Labrador dog. Izuku jumped out of his bed just as the dog started barking at him. Good doggy, repeated Izuku as he wondered how the dog got in the house in the first place. Just then, the dog jumped at Izuku with near super speeds, forcing him to duck and roll out of the way. The dog continued to bark and jump at the poor Japanese boy before it started flying around the room. "What the heck is going on?" Izuku asked before the dog tackled him to the ground and started licking him. The commotion, however, had woken up Kara from her own slumber. "What is all that noise?" Kara asked before realizing that the dog was slobbering all over her man. "No! Bad Crypto, bad, only I get to do that," she said before flying and lifting up the now-named Crypto by the collar. "I don't remember getting a dog," said Izuku as he wiped the dog's saliva off of him. "We didn't. This is Crypto, my cousin's dog," Kara said, holding back the overly friendly dog that barked at his name being mentioned. "What are you doing here, boy?" she asked before spotting a note on his collar. "Dear Kara, I need to go out of town for the day. Please look after Crypto until I get back. Love, your cousin Kal-El." Kara read from the note with an annoyed huff. "What's wrong?" asked Izuku, slowly approaching the dog. "Just my cousin asking me to dog sit for him." "But I can't, I've got Professor Sycamore's stupid science project to finish," Kara said with annoyance. Izuku began scratching and petting Crypto, seemingly winning the dog over. "I could look after him if you're busy," Izuku said as Crypto licked his face. "You sure, Greenie? Crypto has all the powers I've got, he can be a handful," said Kara. "Don't worry, I can handle him no problem," Izuku said as the dog enjoyed getting a belly rub. "Thank you, Izuku. You're a lifesaver," said Kara, giving Izuku a kiss on the lips. "I'll make it up to you. Promise." Kara quickly got dressed and flew out of the house to get started on the science project, leaving Izuku alone with Crypto. Izuku looked at the dog and the dog looked back at him. "I'm guessing you want breakfast?" Izuku asked with only a bark as a response. Izuku got dressed and walked downstairs and served Crypto some dog food that the Danvers had in case Kara's cousin ever showed up. He served himself some cereal and proceeded to have his own breakfast. Just as he was about to have the first spoon of his cereal, he heard a whimper. Izuku looked down and saw that Crypto's bowl was empty. "You must have a pretty big appetite," said Izuku before reaching for another can of dog food. Just as he was about to put the food in the bowl, his phone started vibrating. He was getting a call from Barbara. Izuku answered without a second thought. "Hey Barbara, what's going on?" Izuku answered the call. "Izuku, this is an emergency, come to my house now." Barbara screamed through the phone. Izuku feared the worst. Knowing that Barbara's dad was the new police commissioner could mean that a lot of criminals were out to get him. He quickly got his suit on and rushed to the door, but was stopped by Crypto tugging his leg. "Crypto, I need you to let go, my friend could be in trouble and I can't take you with me," Deku said. Upon hearing that, Crypto sped through the entire house until it came back wearing a red cape and a leash in its mouth. "I guess that could work. But you gotta follow me. Understood?" Deku asked. A few minutes later, Deku was being dragged by Crypto, who was flying like a bird. The young Japanese hero had to keep up with the dog by using 20% of one for all. Jumping from rooftop to rooftop, they finally arrived at the home of Barbara Gordon. They jumped in through the window of Barbara's room with a less than elegant landing from Izuku's part. Deku quickly got back to his feet and got ready for a fight, with Crypto by his side. "I'm here, what's wrong?" asked Deku, looking around the room only for a massive black figure to tackle him from behind. Deku struggled to push off the figure before it could sink its fangs into him. Crypto growled at the figure before using its super breath to blow it off of Deku. They both then spotted that the figure was none other than a large black hound snarling at them. Just then, Barbara entered the room after hearing the scuffle. "Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! Oh my gosh! I am so sorry, I forgot to tell you, Deku," Barbara said, pulling back the hound from its leash. "Barbara, what's the emergency, and who's that dog?" Deku asked as Crypto and the hound growled at each other. Oh, right. The emergency is the dog. This is Ace, also known as Bathound, Barbara said, putting on her own bat cape on the dog, only for the dog to pull it off with an annoyed grunt. You got a dog and named it Bathound? Deku said, confused, with Crypto mirroring Deku's expression. No, I didn't get a dog. This is Batman's personal canine companion, Barbara explained. Robin asked me to look after him today while he and Batman are on a special mission. But I can't keep him here because my dad's allergic, she said before hearing Mr. Gordon sneeze in the background. I need you to basically keep him company while I deal with my dad, Barbara said, giving Izuku Ace's leash. What? But Barbara, I can't handle two dogs at the same time. I gotta, began Deku as both dogs growled at each other. I'll make it up to you, I swear, said Barbara, pushing Deku out the window. Barbara? Called Commissioner Gordon, causing Barbara to push Deku and the two dogs out the window. Barbara turned around and smiled innocently before her father entered her room. You sure you don't have a puppy or something? The commissioner asked. No, Dad, I promise, Barbara said with a big smile. Deku found himself in a park, out of his hero suit, in normal clothing with both dogs sitting side by side. He couldn't help but see the big difference between the two animals. Crypto was friendly and easy to handle save for its superpowers. Ace, on the other hand, was very disciplined, and would keep a stoic posture no matter what happened. Izuku guessed that they were reflecting the personalities of their respective owners. Knowing this, he at least could predict how the dogs would behave from now on. Well, since we're in a park, how about a walk? Izuku asked the two dogs. Crypto barked excitedly while Ace only grunted. Just as the walk around the park began, everything was going all right. Just as they were about to turn a corner, Crypto's ears shot up and Ace began smelling the air. What's wrong, guys? Asked Izuku as he looked around the park. Just then both dogs turned to see a cat minding its own business. Both dogs growled at it before taking off after it, dragging Izuku behind them. The cat, of course, ran like hell at the sight of the two dogs coming at it. Crypto! Ace! Please stop! Izuku screamed bloody murder as he was holding on to the two leashes, doing his best not to lose the two dogs. Izuku called upon his quirk in order to keep up with both canines, but to his surprise they abruptly stopped when the cat climbed up a tree, sending young Midoriya flying into said tree. I take it back, these two are more work than stopping villains, said Izuku, getting a meow from the cat next to him. After getting down from the tree and putting the cat somewhere safe, Izuku went for something to eat, along with Crypto and Ace. Sadly, Sweet Justice did not allow animals inside unless they were service dogs. In that case, he and his companions had to go someplace else. A couple of city blocks and a mailman chase later and Izuku had finally found a hot dog stand. Finally, Izuku said, finally getting a chili dog, only to get whimpers from the two dogs. Please don't look at me like that. I haven't had any breakfast yet. Just as Izuku was about to take a bite out of the chili dog, a massive explosion happened across the street. Out of the building came out Harley Quinn with her two hyena pets. She was carrying a bag full of money while her pets giggled at their crime. And people say crime doesn't pay, Harley laughed as she and her hyenas made their escape. Izuku sighed to himself before taking a quick bite out of his food and giving the dogs the rest. I really wish I could get paid for this, Izuku said before going into an alley and suiting up. Just then Deku noticed both Crypto and Ace had both suited up and stood ready to help him. Deku smiled at the dogs before scratching them behind the ears. Good dogs, now let's catch a clown, Deku said as he and his canine companions rushed after the criminal. Deku, Crypto, and Ace rushed through the rooftops in order to catch up to Harley and her pets. Down on the streets, Harley was having the time of her life. After avoiding the cops with ease, she was ready to spend all her hard-stolen loot on whatever came into her mind. Come on, babies, we have a lot of dough and plenty of time to spend it, said Harley before Deku landed in front of her. I don't think so, Quinn, said Deku, getting in his combat stance. I do think so, Green Bean. Sick 'em, boys, Harley called for her hyenas. The two African predators charged at Deku, but he wasn't too worried. From the darkness of the rooftop came down a large shadow that tackled one of the hyenas to the ground. From behind Deku, a fast whoosh of air went past him and picked up the last hyena. What the? Harley asked before she realized what had happened. Harley gazed upon her two hyenas being taken down by a large bat hound and a super dog. I guess I should introduce you. Bathound and Superdog Harley Quinn. Harley Quinn, Bathound and Superdog, Deku introduced. Nice doggies, Harley said, slowly walking away as the two super pets growled at her. Harley took to running away from the heroic figures before her, but her endeavor was a fruitless one. "I've got her," Deku said before rushing past Harley, blocking her escape. Deku stopped Harley from running with a light flick of his finger. A short while later, the authorities had taken Harley to prison and her hyenas to the local zoo, and had thanked Deku and the super pets for their assistance. After handling the little crime, Deku took both dogs back to the Danvers home, where they basically stayed calmed and chilled. The young green-haired hero used this time to work on some homework that he had yet to finish, as well as have a decent lunch for a change. He was just about to finish his last calculus equation when his phone began vibrating. Izuku looked at the caller and saw that it was none other than his mentor, Toshinori Yagi, also known as All Might. "Hello, All Might?" asked Izuku through the phone. "Hello there, young Midoriya, I'm calling from the phone like a normal person," All Might boldly claimed through the phone. "I was just calling to see how you've been doing in the city of tomorrow. Heard on the news that you've been busy." Izuku flinched at the comment, not having realized that he and the other Titans were indeed getting much attention. Of course, he had kept his mentor as informed as possible about his heroic feats and progress of his development. "Oh, yeah, that's mostly because we're the only hero team in the city. Besides, that can be attributed to the fanbase the girls have gotten," Izuku replied with an embarrassed tone. "Don't sell yourself short, young Midoriya," All Might replied with a hearty laugh followed by a cough. "You and your team may be newbies, but you've come a long way in such a short time. But don't get cocky, you still have a long way to go," he said with a serious tone. "I understand, also I wanted to ask you something," said Izuku, recalling his experience with Despero. "What is it?" "A short while back I was fighting this villain named Despero. During the fight I saw a great flame and 8 different silhouettes within it. I could only make up some of them to be people. One was a pale man with shaggy blonde hair that covered his face. Another one looked like a bulky man that wore goggles on his head and looked like a brawler, and the last one was a young woman with long black hair and a mole on her face." Izuku recalled his experience. "What happened then?" asked All Might, sounding as if he had seen a ghost. "They told me to get up and fight. Did that ever happen to you? Could it be related to One for All?" Izuku asked. "Yes, that happened to me once, but it was much further down the line in my case," said All Might. "What does it mean?" Izuku asked. "You remember when I told you about how One for All came to be, no? When a user passes down the quirk, the next wielder gains not only their power added to their own, but also a part of them," All Might explained. "Think of it like a bonding power. Those slivers of the previous users can sometimes communicate with the current user as what I've theorized, defense mechanism of some kind." "Could it happen again?" Izuku asked. "It only happened to me once, but remember that One for All may evolve and mutate under different circumstances. I hate to admit it, but I am as lost as you are, young Midoriya. For the time being, I suggest focusing on becoming stronger for the future," All Might said. "I will. Thank you, All Might. I'll keep you posted," Izuku said before the call ended. Izuku clearly wanted answers, but he would have to wait a little longer. He had to prioritize mastering One for All, which meant getting more into his training. Izuku was then called out of his thoughts by Kara entering the house. "Greenie, I'm home. Did I miss something?" Kara asked. "Oh, not much really," Izuku said as to not worry her. "Alright, thanks for taking care of Crypto and his brooding counterpart. I'll make it up to you tomorrow, okay?" Kara said, giving him a caring kiss. And guys, this is the end. I hope you guys enjoyed well. Until next time, peace.